today we're going to go over an APA workshop, and we're going to talk about the reasons that APA is used in certain professions and also kind of the rules and fundamentals of APA. So in our agenda today, we're going to look at the fundamentals, and then we will have a video that will talk about APA, an APA handout and activity guide that you can use to kind of practice APA citation format as you're attempting to integrate some of those rules into your own writing. All right. So one thing that I want to start out with, though, is that as in all research, credible sources are incredibly important. And typically what credible sources are defined as are scholarly journals. These are journals that are edited by experts in the field, and so they should be peer-reviewed journals. Scholarly databases. These are collections of academic credible articles. So often students sometimes make that confusion a little bit where they will go in and say search ERIC, which is a database system typically for the social sciences and for teaching, and they'll say that ERIC is the journal. ERIC is simply a database system that houses thousands of journals and articles. So make sure that you kind of pay attention to whether or not you're citing the source as a database or as the actual journal title itself. You can use websites, and there's some really good information on websites. You need to make sure, of course, that they're credible, and typically a .edu or a .gov are going to be credible sites. I would add to that that you check out the last time that the site was revised or updated. So if you see a site, it looks credible, you're looking at the information, seems great, and you look down and you see there's been no update or revisions to that site since, say, 2015, that to me would be a problem, and I would probably see that as being information that's quite old and not valuable at this time. And certainly then books, textbooks that you have, or books that you might find in the library, but that's, getting increasingly less and less with students and research. So typically most students are going to be using journals, and those journals will be ones that they find online. So when you're looking to do your in-text and reference page citations, I would assume that for the most part you are going to be exploring electronic sources only. A lot of students still use Wikipedia to kind of look up topics that they're interested in researching, and I completely understand that approach. There may be times where you are either given the task to look up a topic that you have absolutely no background in, have no idea what it's about, or you do have a topic that you're interested in, but you don't have a lot of prior knowledge or information about that topic. And so certainly that is something that can be difficult. And so I always suggest that students utilize a tool that we already have at Wayne State University that is a credible source. So if you go to the Wayne State University library system and you were to type in Gale Virtual Reference Library, and then if you were to go down to the database for the Gale Virtual Reference Library, and I believe it will ask, okay, then you will be directed, if you're off campus, which pretty much, you'll have to put in your access ID and password to get to this point. But so here you can search ebooks. The Gale Virtual Reference Library is really an online encyclopedia. And so it's going to give you the history, the background, and even some current research regarding the topic that you're interested in. What it will also do will link you to other resources that are available either through our library system or that are current at the moment. And so it gives you kind of multiple kind of like tentacles of research potential. So that's one of the reasons I like it so much. So say if I were to look up, say, cloning, and it were to pop up, so then you can see that there's books that you can look up, and you can look at the different document types, or you can look through here, but if I go into this resource about ethical issues of cloning, it'll give me related subjects. So here I now then have some search terms that I could use if I'm searching. It has some other articles or publications that are related to this article itself. It also allows you to, if you go to the end, there's resources for further reading. Now this is obviously a very short kind of article, and a lot of them are, and a lot of them are very digestible, which is nice. So it at least gives you kind of that baseline of information that you need when you begin researching, and key terms and ideas that you can use when you're trying to research further. So APA, why is it important? Why do people use it? Well, dates are incredibly important in APA. Most of the people that use APA are in a field that privileges information and knowledge and research in a very particular way. It's typically used in research that's empirical in nature, scientific in nature, very much interested in current knowledge and information. And so dates are very important. Um, in the field, we are constantly expanding our knowledge, and our research is constantly being evolved as others add on to the layers of research on a particular topic. And so by the time somebody does research, which could take a year or longer, right? Then they look at their findings, they write up a research manuscript, and then, which again could take quite some time. A lot of times that can take up to a year, and then they go to publish it, which if there's no edits, great, but often it's come back with, re-edit and resubmit. And all of this could take upwards of 5 years or more. So by the time that somebody is actually publishing something and it's in print, that information is old. And so dates are incredibly important to your field because the field that you're in is always shifting and changing and adding on to the knowledge base very quickly. And so if you, the good rule of thumb is usually a 5-year window, right? Writing styles are very important. Clarity matters. Most of the researchers that use APA are not interested in flowery language. They're not interested in a hook to bring a reader in or descriptive language. They really just want to have that information and it be very accessible. And so being very concise, using as few words as possible while still getting the point across, and having a very active voice and a very kind of scientific tone of style is going to be the rule of thumb for APA. And of course, research purpose specific, meaning that APA has very narrow kind of niches of research topics, and they will follow that kind of framework and that kind of style of writing, information that's assumed that other people reading already know, and so on and so forth. And so this takes time, and is something that isn't something that you just get right away, especially since for the most part, students have been taught to write in MLA their whole lives, right? So this is a big shift, and that's also why the Writing Center is here to kind of help you navigate that transition. So in-text citations, the basics. We use these because it helps the reader find the relevant sources. If I'm a researcher and I'm interested in the research that you've conducted and written about, then I want to be able to go and look at that research. And so in many ways, a reference page, or what you're used to calling as a works cited page, is certainly there to give credit to those who have done the research and that has been used, but also it's a research tool. All reference pages, works cited pages, are a list of sources that if I'm interested in this topic, I can mine, I can go in and look at and explore to find research on that topic, right? When you do place in-text citations, they're used when you paraphrase and when you do direct quoting. So either way, if you have found that information from the research you've conducted, then you need to make sure that you're doing in-text citations. And I always say to my students too that, like, why wouldn't you want to put as many in-text citations as possible? Because you really want to show to your reader that you've done this rich amount of research, that you are a credible source, and that you are providing validation to the claims or the data or information that you're providing. So if you don't do that, then you're missing an opportunity to highlight all the work that you've done and to produce something that looks credible and professional, right? All right. So basic in-text citation is the author's last name and year. First names are not used, and they're not used because there's a move to make sure that there's no gender bias in